cooking for you today? Well, I got a chance to see Let Me Cook for You, the trilogy, written and performed by Orietta Crispino. Sorry for my terrible Italian accent. And this was done at Theatrelab, and it was so wonderful. She brings you into this welcoming atmosphere as Orietta tells us about her influential mother and her ever-moving story and life and the importance of beauty for all senses. And she cooks for us. She really does cook for us. It's the most delicious thing you ever had in your life. It's this delicious vegetarian thing. And so it opens up with her while she's cooking for us, so we can smell it, and then we get to taste it. And then we go into another room and we raid her closet. And she has the most Italian designer clothes, gorgeous bags, everything. She's putting them all on. And we're like, whoa. And then the third part of this evening is very reflective. And we literally break bread, cakey bread at the end. It was something you've never seen before. It's how important beauty is, because her mom was a beloved beautician. And it's just wonderful. So I really recommend this. I give it a major happy face and a nice happy tummy too. We are so excited, all the way from Belgium. We've got Marie Vinck from the FC Bergman company, who's going to be down at Brooklyn in BAM, September 28th to October 1st, with this very exciting, you have to tell us about it, how you found it, how BAM found you, the whole thing, because it sounds absolutely phenomenal, how you turned the whole theater into a village.
Yeah, well, it was a performance that we made it in 2011, and the joke is that we made it for only one night. So it was something that we did. We had this opportunity to have this huge theater for one night with no money, and we just asked all our friends, actors, and we went to pick up Christmas trees from the streets because it was January, and we just made this like guerrilla scenery. And we did something for one night, and it turned out to be a success. And now it's 11 years later, and we're still touring with it. So it's absurd.
And it wasn't scripted, though. Wasn't it improvised, or did you finally? Because I heard.
No. It was not improvised at all. We wrote a scenario in 1 month, really like a film scenario, and we actually rehearsed for I think 4 or 5 days with all the actors, and really, did what we wrote down. So it was completely thought before by us and completely done by the actors. So it's not improvisation at all.
Oh, because you made it sound, when I was reading about it, it was like sounded like it was chaos. Oh, first of all, we should say the name of the play, the plot of the play, what we're actually talking about, because I read about it beforehand and I'm like, oh, this looks cool. What is this?
Yeah, so the title is 300L times 50L times 30L, and it's reference to the measurements of the arch of Noah from the Bible. So they think that are the measurements of this arch of Noah, and this was the story that inspired us to make our own story, a biblical, biblically inspired story about fear, about fear of death, about fear of being sinful and being punished, in short.
How do you come up with these ideas?
It's something that, that's how we work. We always start with a thought, and then we start making images with this thought, and then it turns into a scenario. But it's very freely, and it's always very visual and mostly not text-based, but more like an idea.
And who is we? You're saying we. Who is we?
So we're 4 people, and we studied together in school. In theater school, we were trained as actors. And then in our second year, we actually found each other and started doing things together in summer for this youth theater festival. And that's how we found each other and started thinking about starting a company. And that's where we are now.
So instead of forming a garage band, you formed a garage theater band.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
does FC Bergman stand for?
Well, it founded in the same period where we were all very young and still students, and for this theater festival we had to find, it's a really stupid story actually, we had to find a name for the group. And so they asked us, we have to have the name tomorrow because we have to have this paper for the theater festival. And we were in a bar and we saw in the newspaper that Ingmar Bergman had died. And that was the moment we had to find this name. So we thought, okay, we will be Bergman. And FC, yeah, it's like a football club. So it's really a very banal, origin of our name.
The theme of fear seems to be really interesting, and it's always with us. But I'm wondering, what do you think has changed about what we are fearing now than when you started the piece, 11 years ago?
Yeah, it's very interesting that this is that this performance is about some. Do you have this expression, the sword of Damocles hanging?
Yes.
Oh yes, absolutely.
So it's really about that, but the meaning of this sword constantly keeps changing. It's also when we're touring in different countries, people interpret it differently. And I think now, well, we have a lot of crises above our heads. Yeah, I don't know if we have to talk about all of them, but of course you have this climate crisis, you have this energy crisis, you have so many things, and
especially in America.
But Europe isn't doing that well either, but okay. No, so I think this performance is now, again, can be interpreted really actually on the society right now. And it has changed a lot, I think, in 11 years.
What happens when you go to a different country with a different space? Does it change how you put it together and the dynamics? I mean, with the way you act because you're in such a different space and having the logistics of it all.
Yeah, what's great is that we always work with 80 people who come and play with us.
Wow.
Yeah, they're like 80 extras, and they are in the end of the performance. So that makes it every time different because you get to meet these locals and talk about the performance with them and have their contribution to the performance. So that's what makes it very different every time and very local every time.
Do you perform in different languages?
Sorry?
Do you perform in different languages?
Yeah, but we mostly play without text.
Ah.
So we don't have any language in this one. But we've also had performances with language, but then we try as much as possible to translate and to not use this subtitling, but try to play in the language of the country that we are. So we have played in English and in German and in French, but most of the time we don't have any text in the performance. So then it's, that part is easy.
And is there a movie involved in this too? Because I read somewhere you like to do movie and theater and mix it all together. Yeah,
so this is the first performance in which we did that. So we have, did you see images of it already?
Well, there was like a trailer. I watched a little trailer and then I read the sort of the, press release. So that's all I know about it. That's why I'm just so intrigued.
Yeah. So this is the first time that we mixed the two media of theater and film. It was the first time that we did it, and on a very clear level, because when you're sitting in the theater, you see you see 6 houses of a village, but you only see the external part of the houses, and it's only the camera who turns around and sees the back and the interiors and makes clear whatever happens inside. So you're depending on the screen to see what happens inside the houses. And of course, the people sometimes come out and go in again. So you have to make up your own story with those two narrations that are working together.
Well, a lot of your pieces are very site specific. Is there any chance you might do something about a specific site in New York at some time?
Well, we have this great dream to do something in the armory. What's it called again?
Park Armory.
Yeah. We made a performance. It's called JR. It's with a lot of text, and it's based on a book of William Gaddis. It's about New York in the 70s, and we already made our decor fit for this space in the armory. So actually, we really want to play it there, but there are some conversations about it. So I hope one day it will happen, but we'll see. So that would be really a dream come true. But BAM is already great, of course.
But thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. I mean, and I'm going to see it September 28th. I mean, I'm going the first day because I can't wait to see this thing.
Great. Looking forward very much. So great to talk to you.
Safe travels.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Marie.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
So now Mark Wilding's show has opened on September 16th. So now we can talk about him as him. So Mr. Wilding, tell us about yourself and all the exciting projects you've had and being on stage now.
Well, it's funny. I actually, I've been writing in Hollywood as a TV writer for 30 years now. And, but I got my initial break was when I wrote a play. It was the last play I wrote, was 30 years ago. And a couple people from Disney came and saw the play, and it won this playwriting festival up in Northern California. It got put on there, and then it got put on in Los Angeles. And somebody from Disney came and saw the play, and they said, asked if I would be interested in writing for television. And I said, yeah, that's sort of been the goal. And then they hired me for a show with a sitcom with Ellen DeGeneres, which was called These Friends of Mine originally. And then they changed the title of the second season to Ellen because, Ellen was the star. And so that was my first job in Hollywood. I wrote for sitcoms for about 10 years. I wrote for Ellen, Dave's World.
But I love Dave's World.
Oh my God. That is so funny because I always thought that Dave's World never sort of got the credit it should have gotten, because it was we did some pretty wild stuff on that show, and I think, and we always were getting sort of commendations from American Family Council and all this sort of stuff. And yet the stuff we did was a little bit sort of, I don't know if rebellious is the word, but at one point they buy land and it turns out it's a pot field. An episode I wrote, they have an au pair who's helping out of the house from France, and she ends up cooking the family pet and putting it in because she's a lapin, cassoulet de lapin, so she makes a cassoulet out of the family rabbit. So things like that we sort of got away with, and it was always just a fun show to work on because we could sort of we could push the limits and nobody seemed to pay much attention.
Such a great cast. I mean, Harry Anderson, whom I absolutely was madly in love with. So I'm so sad when he died.
Oh,
and
I know.
Adam Stevens and Patrick Warburton, who has now become the voice master. I mean, you can't have a cartoon without Patrick Warburton being in it.
No, and a lot of fun. Harry was a lot of fun to work with. The whole cast, and Meshach Taylor was great. I mean, it was just a wonderful cast and very talented cast too. And then I sort of thought that I was sort of seeing the writing on the wall, and that sitcoms were becoming less and less popular. This is sort of in the early 2000s. And then I switched over to drama and ended up writing on a show called Charmed, the original Charmed, for a couple of years, and then got hired on Grey's Anatomy. And that's when I sort of joined the ranks of Shondaland. And I worked there for 13 years, worked on Grey's Anatomy for 7 years. Then subsequently, I was the head writer on Scandal for 5 years, and so I sort of managed to keep my career sort of bumbling along, if you will. Writing producers, and I'm a writing producer, and as a writing producer, you're sort of overlooking the scripts and the storytelling and helping lead the discussion for how you're going to move forward with the season and with the episodes you want to do, and with you want the characters to do. So, and then, you know, as a producer also, you're involved in casting, editing, you know, talking to the cast if any issues come up that they have, you know, difficulties with. So there's a whole host of things that you do in addition to your writing responsibilities.
I'm curious about going back to writing for the theater after so much work in television. How has that affected your writing for theater? Is it different now?
That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. TV is collaborative. It really has to be. You know, be it a Shonda Rhimes with Grey's Anatomy, or say a Vince Gilligan with Breaking Bad. You know, you need other writers around. You need good editors. You need good directors. And the cool thing I found out about theater is, first of all, it's also collaborative. It's also collaborative. You also, and that's what I really am enjoying about it. The upside to theater for me is that you're not necessarily subjected to notes and oversight from networks and studios. Because of course, when you're doing television, those, you know, a Disney studio or Warner Brothers or whoever, you know, is helping make your show, or Universal, they weigh in because they're giving you the money to make the show. So you know, you have to listen to them as well. And that can be, to be honest, sometimes it can be painful. But, you know, sometimes they have, you know, good notions. They don't necessarily have the answers for things, but they sort of make you think again about what you're doing. But I like this because it's a lot less supervision thing. I think that they are kind of the same in that you're always looking for conflict, and you're always looking for like turns in the scene with characters that will sort of propel the story forward. So in that sense, I think it's the same. You do have to sort of
The live audience makes a difference, does it not?
the live audience also makes a difference.
Yeah.
You also, it makes a big difference, but you also have to sort of keep in mind, I don't know, it's weird. I sort of see theater also as a very visual thing, you know, and I don't see TV quite as much as a visual enterprise. And when I say a visual thing, it's sort of like, I'm imagining what will get, you know, what will a look from a certain character do. Once you write it in TV and you go, okay, and you know, a bunch of people saw that episode and that's that. And then, you know, in the theater, you know, I go quite a bit to the productions. When we had the play out here, Our Man in Santiago in LA, I would go to a lot of the productions, and you'd see how different audiences would react to different things. So that was always interesting to me. And it was also a learning experience because I'd go, oh, I don't think that joke really works. You know, in TV, you've written the joke and it's been on the air, but now, at least in theater, you can go back and redo it and, you know, come up with something better, hopefully.
It's kind of like, you know, with a ballet person learning modern dance. So it's like, you know, all these movements, but you have to use like a different muscle. So like with writing for TV and for theater, it's like you're still writing, but using like a different writing muscle. Is that like what it's like?
That is exactly what it's like. And I think, and I still feel that I have a bunch to learn writing plays. And
so does that mean you're going to write more plays now?
I am going to write more plays now. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I'm very much into it and enjoying it. And it's been good because, as I say, working with the director, Charlie Mount, who's been doing plays for a long, long time, I've learned a lot from him just in terms of the way things are staged, you know, and he's just been wonderful. So anyway.
Well, I'm looking forward to Our Man in Santiago, which we get to see September till the end of October. So it's got a nice long run for everyone to catch it. And I'm looking forward to whatever you do in the future. And I'm going to go back and watch Grey's Anatomy and Scandal reruns now. Well, you got to see Los Otros on our last show, but I got to see the actual show now. So Los Otros, with book and lyrics by Ellen Fitzhugh and music by Michael John Lacuso, tells the separate stories of Lillian and Carlos. Lillian, growing up poor with her three sisters, would watch the trains and Mexicans jumping off. This was a pivotal moment for her when her sister saw a Mexican family jumping off with a baby and hiding in the nearby cave. Turns out Mexicans were a running theme throughout her life. She crossed the border to smuggle a Mexican to help her raise her kids. She had an unexpected encounter with a young Mexican that would make Tennessee Williams proud. And finally, she meets and gets close to Carlos, who ended up with her second husband, George. Carlos fled Mexico with his intrepid mother, who saved them both from a hurricane. He worked in a supermarket in the winter and learned English there. In the summer, his family picked plums for money. They each had their loves and struggles, but that is what life is. Apparently, this is an autobiographical story of Ellen Fitzhugh with the added texture of Michael John LaCusa's music. His music evoked the swing music of the 40s, bebop of the 50s, and rock of the 60s, with undertones that conveyed the various emotions the characters were going through. The actors were phenomenal. Cesar Samoya went from a thick accent to practically none as he went from an immigrant to a successful accountant. Luba Mason went from a caring teenager to a disappointed adult with awful jobs, marriages, and kids. Both had glorious voices that sent chills down my spine. Noah Himmelstein directed this with seamlessness that made both narratives appealing as we followed their lives. A tour de force show, happy face.
It's only why and how that makes the drum.
Strings Attached, written by Carol Bouget and directed by Alexa Kelly, deals with the trio of scientists who explore the possibilities and uncertainties of both science and love. During the train ride, they encounter whimsical travelers and apparitions of their scientific heroes. I liked it a lot. I gave it a happy face, and it really does manage to combine science and love. And even for people who really don't know much about science, things are explained as they go along, so you won't feel lost.
And I've got to say, the set was amazing. My only problem was, speaking of chemistry, I just thought the chemistry, June and Rory, I just did not buy it. He didn't seem very working class at all, but he was a really good actor. And I loved his voice. So, and Paul Scheffler, to see him again, oh, yummy, yummy. Anyway, I enjoyed it too for what it was. It was a fun little show. And I love Paul's ensemble. I'm glad they're still around. So I give it a happy face minus.
Yeah, I did the minus too, because the second act, even though I knew it was necessary, it just didn't really engage me that much.
Our next show will be October 8th, where we have a lot to talk about still. We've got Hyprov, Kite Runner, Our Man in Santiago, The Review, Kinky Boots, and we've been seeing a lot of stuff from 50 Below and 92 NY, so you should really check them out. But in the meantime, September 25th, tomorrow, is a Broadway Cares Equity Flea Market, which is around Schubert Alley. And then on October 1st at 3 at La Mama, they're going to be celebrating the life of George Bartenieff from, we know from Theater for the New City. And Eliza Bent is doing a Bentertainment abroad, doing the work at the Brick Theater October 6th. And on the Verge, which I'm going to be seeing, closes September 24th. And Jasper, I'm going to be seeing, is closing October 6th. And also, we're going to be reviewing this October 8th. It's so important. You should see this. Do not miss this. Remember this. The Lesson of Jan Karski. David Strathern portrays a Polish Catholic man who tried to tell leaders in England and the US what he saw of the extermination of Polish Jews in 1943. It's a compelling, important story told in an exceptionally good way. Me and Mark were completely blown away by it. We just absolutely, utterly adored it. And really, it is a true story. And it's just incredible. So see you October 8th. And bye.